Hello, Rio Americano Apes class. Paul is here. The purpose of this video is to give you an opportunity to finish up the Chapter 16 notes, also to give students who are absent an opportunity to get them down in the first place. A couple reminders: please number your notes to make it easy for me to scan them and find out if you did them all. And please do your class notes in Cornell note style. Of course, because this is a video, I will be moving a little faster than I do during our normal lectures. And of course, you can pause the video if I'm going too fast. I will warn you and let you know when I'm going to the next screen so you will know when to pause. All right, here we go. All right, so 5 real categories of health hazards. Vocabulary. It's a risk. We always report that in terms of a ratio or a percentage. Higher the percentage, the more risky. Lower the percentage, of course, the less. Moving ahead in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, so what do? You got to ID what the hazard is, have to calculate how risky it is, and determine what the worst case possible scenario is to find out if it's something that we seriously need to take care of or not. And again, by taking care of, usually that means money. So obviously, knowing the probability of the risk is important. So if you can compare it to other risks, and you know what the percentage or probability for those other risks are, this might make it easier for people to understand. Also might make it cheaper to calculate the probability of the risk. So how are you going to reduce the risk probability? And how much is it going to cost? So the book was born prior to COVID. I did throw a few COVID things in there. And of course, these notes, because of how long we've been living with COVID, should be kind of commonplace. We're already doing the things that the book is suggesting that we're doing. I'm moving ahead in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, so non-transmissible. Cardiovascular heart disease, which can either be genetic, predisposed, it can be diet related. We all know what a pandemic is. Epidemic is just smaller scale. Moving ahead in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, please use this as an opportunity to practice a little bit with your notes. Every minute you spend practicing now is a minute you won't have to spend practicing later. Take a look back at number 1, if you can't remember. Yeah, biological, chemical, natural, cultural, and lifestyle. 2 characteristics associated with risk management. Take a look at number 4. Yeah, so the steps: ID it, calculate the probability of risk, determine worst case scenario, details, try to compare it to another type of risk, figure out how you're going to reduce it, and then figure out how much it's going to cost to do that. An example of a transmissible versus non-transmissible disease, one of each. Take a look at number 4 and 5. So transmissible, obviously, COVID, flu, common cold. Non-transmissible could be cardiovascular disease and or cancer, asthma. All right, moving on. So in 1900, it was the leading cause of death. Primarily, it's a problem in developing nations or non-developed nations simply because they just don't have as much access to technology. And their populations, large portion of their population still don't have access to healthcare. So remember, CC's climate change. Temperatures are increasing, which allows vectors or the pathogens themselves to survive at warmer temperatures. So essentially, because of climate change, many diseases are getting exposed to more people more often. Moving ahead in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. It's tuberculosis. Remember, the I up arrow means increase. Whenever you see a D and then the up arrow, it means decrease. Moving ahead in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, so flu, HIV, Hep B, Ebola, West Nile was a big deal a couple decades ago with mosquitoes. I mean, still a big deal. It's just you don't hear about it as often. As of August of last year, I'm recording this video in February of 2022, there were 4.4 million deaths from COVID in 17 months. I checked yesterday, which would have been February 4th. And if you increase that to about 22 months, we were at 5.7 million deaths in just under 2 years. All right, so this is common knowledge now. I mean, if you didn't know it before, you certainly know it now. Wash your hands often. Avoid the sick, not because you don't like them, but because you don't want to get sick. Keep your hands away from your openings on your face. That's how the pathogens get in. HIV and AIDS. So it's not HIV that kills you. It weakens your immune system, which allows other things that normally our body can handle quite easily to kill you. Pneumonia is a big one. And HIV and AIDS is still a larger problem in developing nations simply because they don't have access to as much contraception as developed nations do. Moving ahead in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Why do you think the non-developed countries still suffer from the spread of infectious diseases? Take a look back at number 7. Yeah, if you don't have the infrastructure and if you don't have the wealth, even if technology and medical advances exist, it doesn't mean you're going to be able to get them to your populations. 2 things you learned about tuberculosis. Take a look back at number 9. Yeah, it's a lung infection, very contagious. It's on the rise in the last 30 years. Lack of screening or control programs. It's gaining some genetic resistance to antibiotics. Big part of that is because people use antibiotics even when they don't necessarily need to. Yeah, it gets spread because of larger population densities, air travel, urbanization. These things sound familiar? They should. What are two things you learned about HIV and AIDS? Take a look at number 12. Yeah, so it's HIV that doesn't kill you. It's the infections that you get and your weakened immune system can't handle that do the damage. Still a big deal in developing nations, and obviously ages 15 to 49, which are the sexually active years. All right, malaria. What this means is a bug bites somebody who's infected with malaria, and then it bites somebody who's uninfected with malaria, and that's how the disease is transmitted. I'm moving ahead in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, so pick some ways to reduce the spread of infectious diseases. This should sound very familiar. Moving ahead in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Sorry about the crunching. It's lunchtime and I'm eating an apple. So obviously chemicals that are hazardous can cause cancer. That's what a lot of people think of. And then there's 3 systems that they primarily damage: immune, nervous, and endocrine. Remember, the endocrine system is the one that has the glands and hormones. So mutagen does not necessarily induce a mutation. It is more likely to induce a mutation. All right, moving ahead in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, what are 2 things you learned about malaria? Take a look back at 13 if you can't remember. It's a parasite. Mosquitoes carry it. It gets transmitted by the mosquito biting one person and then another. It's been on the rise. Climate change is going to allow it to move into areas where it had not been before. Immunity is being developed by the parasite and also by mosquitoes. All right, here we go. 2 solutions to slowing or stopping the spread of infectious diseases. Take a look back at number 14. Yeah, biggest one is reduce poverty. A lot of problems, environmental problems, can be tied back to poverty. Reduce the use of antibiotics on livestock. If insects are biting livestock, as they many times do, they're getting exposed to these antibiotics, which they'll develop immunity to. Also, there's the opportunity for those antibiotics to get into humans if you are feeding livestock with that. All right, next one. Match them up. Answers coming in 3, 2, and 1. That would be B, C, and A. All right, here we go. All right, PCBs. So this is a big one. They're very stable, which means it takes a long time for them to degrade naturally or to biodegrade, which means that they stay in nature for a long time and it allows them to bioaccumulate or to biomagnify through food chains and food webs. PCBs are common in electronics parts, transistors, transformers. We don't use it anymore, but there's a lot of electronics out there with it. And that's why it's important to recycle electronics versus throwing them in your garbage can because those parts need to be handled like toxic material. Immune system importance. So obviously it protects us from disease. There are 3 items that weaken our immune system. Remember, arsenic is common from mining operations. Dioxin is a toxic chemical that is used in the manufacture of, if I'm not mistaken, paper, either paper or plastic. Oh, sorry. Moving ahead. Pause the video if you need. All right, neurotoxins and nervous system problems. Moving ahead in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Endocrine system function. So glands release hormones. These hormones regulate our body systems. Sometimes they will stimulate another gland to release another hormone, or sometimes they'll stimulate an organ to do something that the body's supposed to do. These hormones control sexual reproduction, growth and development, learning and behavior. So these hormones go to cells called target cells, and then they bind to the target cell, and the target cell does something. Funny story. It's a couple years back when there was an assignment on hormonally active agents, and I included that in my daily email. And one of the parents emailed back saying, "Are you talking about teenagers?" But it was pretty funny. I had never thought of it that way. All right. So they're called endocrine disruptors because they mess with the endocrine system. So these are things that have similar shapes, so they actually block the hormone from binding to the target cell, and therefore the target cell does not do what the target cell is supposed to do. Moving ahead in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. What characteristics of PCBs make them particularly dangerous to organisms? You might want to take a look at number 17. Yeah, they don't break down very quickly, which means they can bioaccumulate or biomagnify as you move through food webs and food chains. Good. 2 things you learned about the immune system and chemicals that affect it. Take a look at number 18. Yeah, so arsenic, methylmercury, dioxins weaken our immune system, which enables us to get sick from other things. 2 things you learned about nervous system and the chemicals that affect it. Take a look at number 19. Yeah, PCBs, arsenic, lead, pesticides, methylmercury all affect the nervous system. And by the way, toxins that affect the nervous system are referred to as neurotoxins. 2 things you learn about endocrine system and its chemicals. Yeah, so the endocrine system produces hormones that go to target cells that make things happen. And the problem is hormonally active agents or endocrine disruptors mimic those hormones and they bind to the target cell, and then the things the body needs to get done don't get done. Let's finish these up. So BPA mimics estrogen, perfluorinated chemicals, stuff we use for nonstick cookware, can cause thyroid disease, cancer. Polybrominated diphenols, or PBDEs, are in fabrics, furniture, mattresses, plastics. You might want to pause the video because in just a moment, the things you need to write down are going to expand. And there you go. So again, the prompt should be choose one way to prevent and one way to control mercury pollution. Big one is incineration, burning garbage, burning stuff. It's kind of costly, but you can actually remove mercury from the coal. And remember, the idea of coal is that it's cheap energy, so that's not too commonly done. Moving ahead in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, how do you protect your endocrine system? Organic produce, organic fed meat, avoid canned foods, don't use nonstick cookware, use glass and ceramic, store stuff in glass and not in plastic. Moving ahead in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. WHO, remember, is the World Health Organization. They've been working overtime for a couple of years. And we really need to invest in developing nations and try to eliminate poverty because poverty is the root of a lot of environmental problems. I'm moving ahead in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right. That's a lot to choose from. Pick 3. So bacteria can reproduce up to 16 million in one day, and all that DNA replication offers the opportunity for mutations. And of course, survivors, coming close to home again, can be related to the variants and COVID. AB stands for antibiotics. 80% of the antibiotics used in the US are used on livestock. Protect their investment. Every major disease-causing bacterium has developed resistance to at least one of the 200 common antibiotics. And a superbug can resist every single antibiotic known to man. And MRSA is a big one. Moving ahead in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, so write down the first 2 bullets and then pick 3 of the examples. All right, moving ahead in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, what's one way to control and or prevent mercury pollution? Can't remember, you might want to take a look back at number 23. Yeah, stop burning it. Remove it from coal before we burn coal. Yeah, those are both good ones. What is one global organization or agency, and how does it help to protect the earth? Take a look back at number 25. Yeah, United Nations promotes communication. World Health Organization focuses on better health. A lot of that deals with communication too. And the World Bank, helping with technology and financial assistance to developing nations. 2 things you learned about genetic resistance to antibiotics or eco-medicine. So take a look at 26 or 27. Remember, I just have you guys practice on whiteboards or just practice at home, just to see what you've picked up and to give you another opportunity to get it in your head before we move on to new content. And of course, there were plenty of things you could write about. All right, this is, I believe, where we stopped in class. And this is the next thing I want you guys to do. So I've been very frustrated recently with, I give you guys 15 minutes of video to watch to write down the math problems and the prompts. Some students are taking it really, really seriously. Other students are not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you an example of what will get full credit going forth and what some students are doing that will lose them some points. All right, so let me move over to this document that I created. All right. So what I did is I just simply copied and pasted some of what I was seeing from somebody's class notes. All right, so what a lot of students are doing, and they're going to start losing points from it, is they're just writing down all the calculations. They're not writing down any of the questions that are initiating this mathematics solving. So this will lose you points every time. Obviously, if you skip it altogether, it's a guarantee. But I want the questions written down in addition to this. The idea is that when you're getting ready for the AP test, I want you to be able to go back and have some examples of some math problems and how to solve them. All right, this is a student this is the conversion from quadrad to hectare. That's how you do it. This is a conversion to get from kilograms per hectare. All right, and then they have the prompts. All right, these are the actual questions that initiated these calculations. This is where their learning takes place, not just writing down what the formulas are. All these questions, now they know how to take the given information and do it. Now, granted, this student, this probably took them 15, maybe 20 minutes to write this down, especially if they were pausing the video and trying to do the calculations themselves, okay? But you know what? Practicing math isn't something that's fast. It takes a little bit of time. So if you want full credit on your class notes, and again, 2 out of 2 is 100%, 1.5 out of 2 is a C. If you want to lose points, skip it or do something like this. So now you've seen examples of what I want and what I don't want, and you know what the consequences are. Okay, back to this. All right, so you write down the prompt, write down all the given information, and then what I want you to do is write down again the prompt. What is the concentration in parts per million? These are the givens. I'm going to show you the solution, and you can pause it in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, so it shows how you can get from parts per billion to parts per million. Remember, that's a factor of 3. Next one. Here's the given information. And you need this given information to be able to address the questions and the prompts that are on their way. Moving to the next slide in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, so here's the question, and here are the steps. Solutions coming in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Next question. Total amount of PCBs. Now that we know total volume in Lake Ontario. All right, solutions coming in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And here's the second part of that solution. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, and I'm leaving this slide in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I will see you back in class.